Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today. This is the Sigma Virtual Hands-On Lab for the month of June. We're going to give folks a couple more minutes to join. We'll wait until we reach about maximum capacity. But in the meantime, you can get ready by setting up your Sigma trial. So if you access www.sigmacomputing.com/free-trial, you'll be able to log into Sigma. You'll get an email. You'll set up a username, password. You'll be able to log right in, and you'll be able to follow along with this lab on the Sigma sample database. I'm going to repeat those instructions in just a minute once more folks join. You'll also notice there is a handouts tab in this GoToMeeting. That's where the hands-on lab guide sits. It's also accessible at sigmacomputing.com/HOL. Now, feel free to follow along with your free trial of Sigma, but this session is also going to be recorded. So if you'd like, you can wait until it's completed, then follow along at your own pace afterwards. The attendees are still ticking up. Now, as we go, there is also a questions tab within this webinar. So feel free to ask questions as we go. We have a few people from our side on the line that will be able to address them. Okay, looks like we got most people have signed in. So everyone, if you want to get started, if you access www.sigmacomputing.com/free-trial, you'll be able to sign up for our platform, 14 days, and you can follow along with this lab. You'll actually get an email, follow the link, set up your name, password, and then you'll be live within our SaaS tool. Now, high level, there's a questions tab to ask questions as we go. There's also a handouts tab for the actual lab guide, and you can access it here at this link, www.sigmacomputing.com/HOL. But for quick introductions, my name is Zach Norton. I'll be your moderator today. I am a technical product marketing manager. I'm joined by one of our solution engineers, Ryan Mattel. He's going to walk you through this lab and also address some questions live as we go. We also have Michael Burfiend, one of our field SCs on the team as well. He's going to be in the questions tab, be able to answer any questions that pop up. So I'm going to actually kick off a poll here just to kind of get a feel for our audience, which is for everybody on the line, what do you have more experience with? Is it analytics and BI tools, or is it spreadsheets? All right, looks like we got most of our input here. This is interesting. I'm actually going to share the results, but actually by an overwhelming majority, most people have experience with spreadsheets. Now, myself, I started out in an analytical tool, and then I actually started exporting more into spreadsheets. That was my learning path throughout these kind of tools. The reason why we ask is actually Sigma has a very intuitive spreadsheet-like interface for being able to scale out to the traditional way that BI tools used to work on top of large amounts of data. And you'll get a first hands-on experience with that in the lab today. So I'm just going to hide those results, bring up our slides again, and move on to our next tab. So 2 components to this hands-on lab. There's the free trial account that I hope everybody signed up for. Now, you don't have to follow along with this lab. You're going to get a recording of this sent to your email afterwards if you want to follow it at your own pace. And then there's a hands-on lab guide that's accessible right in the handout tab within the GoToWebinar. Here is the link for the free trial. You'll get a welcome email. If it doesn't pop up in your inbox, check your spam folder. And like I said, feel free to hit us up in the questions tab, ask anything that you're curious about along the way. High level agenda. I'm just going to go through a few slides. I'm not going to take up too much time before we get actually hands-on keyboard here. And within the lab, we're going to get oriented with the Sigma user interface. We're going to work on retail demo data just because that's very familiar to folks. Everybody's shopped at a Target or a CVS, so it's going to be retail transactions. Very easy to kind of get a grip for the tool on top of that data. But we also work with healthcare data, fintech data, general ledger data, really flexible in terms of what kind of use cases we have. We're going to perform some data calculations and analysis. We're going to create charts and visualizations, build more of like an interactive dashboard tab, but you'll get a feeling for where the spreadsheet ends and where our actual visualizations blend together. Throughout, we'll have a Q&A, and we'll do as much as we can in the next 90 minutes. And then after that, everybody can self-pace finish the labs at their leisure. So, high-level introduction to Sigma. Now, if any folks were at Snowflake Summit last week in Las Vegas, you could have stopped by our booth. It was heavily trafficked because we are the next-gen cloud analytics tool for the modern data stack. We provide a very intuitive spreadsheet interface, so you don't have to learn another traditional BI tool. Take what you already know about Excel or Google Sheets and then transpose it onto millions or billions of rows of data. In the enterprise space, we find ourselves to be complementary to existing investments, usually sitting alongside a more traditional BI tool. But for smaller companies, they actually oftentimes just use us as their primary BI tool. And a little bit about our history, we are brought to you by the same people that brought you Snowflake. So Snowflake's founders was Sutter Hill Ventures. There's this guy, Mike Spicer. He takes Snowflake's founders out of Oracle, says, build the data warehouse for the cloud. They did the same thing with our co-founders and just said, hey, we got the data in the cloud now. We need an intuitive way for business users to be able to access it. So that's what Sigma is. We achieved that through the Sigma workbook. It's going to be a live connection on top of the data in your cloud data platform. That's Snowflake, Redshift, BigQuery, Postgres, and very soon Databricks. Now that connection never moves the data out of the cloud data platform because we execute machine-generated SQL code in real time. So if your security team has already blessed one of these platforms, great, they won't have any issue with Sigma because all we're doing is providing greater access for business users that we lock down and govern, as opposed to traditionally those business users would be exporting into Excel. One other nice thing about all these features, whether it's drill anywhere, create new calculations, create visualizations, all that is also externally embeddable. So our features like upload CSV, drill anywhere, also remain true when you embed Sigma in other web platforms, whether you want to embed it in an iframe within Salesforce, or if you want to embed us in a traditional Tableau dashboard, there's a lot of flexibility there. Now, we have many customers scaling up from the enterprise to smaller startups. There's a lot of different use cases here that I could talk to. Financial technology loves Sigma for being able to do trades analysis. Other companies use us for our marketing to be able to get down to row level detail, actually calculate end-to-end their conversion rates, a lot of flexibility. Really just we want to provide access to the data in your cloud data platform, security governed, with drill anywhere for users that don't know how to write SQL or don't want to write SQL anymore. They find it faster to do it within Sigma. So I think without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Ryan, and he's going to begin the hands-on lab. But again, feel free to reach out with any questions within the questions tab.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan. I will be leading you through the hands-on lab PDF that you could download from within the handout section. So I'll give a couple of seconds to get that pulled up. Feel free to either follow along in your own Sigma instance with the PDF, Or if you would just like to watch basically a live demo of me doing the PDF, you could do that and then work on the hands-on lab for yourself after that. So I'll give a couple seconds to get ready. Okay, so we are going to be starting on Module 3, Introduction to Sigma Workbooks. But just as a quick introduction on what you see here on your Sigma page, you're able to see recent documents that could be used within Sigma here. That's on your home page. A couple of other things, you can always favorite documents to make sure that those are easily accessible. In the shared with me folder, this will be documents that have been shared with you from other users in your organization. You'd also be able to use templates. So say you were able to make a worksheet, or sorry, a workbook that you would like to share out the template of to other users in your organization, you can make that as a template here. We also have some shared templates that you'd be able to work off of if you want to get started super quick. Then we have your My Documents folder here where all of your work will be placed. And we also have workspaces. So workspaces is a place where you're able to share out your documents with specific teams or users, and also where you'll be able to set permissions on who is able to access what documents. But we'll go ahead and get started on Module 3 now. So we're going to get started on 3.1, Explore and Create a Sigma Workbook. And as Zach said, if you have any questions throughout the time, feel free to ask the questions and we'll be able to answer it there, and we'll answer some questions live as well. So we'll get started on 3.1 and we'll start by selecting this Sigma sample database connection. So this is us selecting our Snowflake connection. We're now going to head on to 3.1.2 where we find the table that we are working with. So to find our table, we'll select on this plugs electronic schema, and then we'll select our plugs electronic hands-on lab table here. It will give us a nice little preview of the data. So as you see here, we're working on 4.5 million rows, which isn't a crazy amount for cloud data scale, but it is a lot more than you would be able to work on in Excel or Google Sheets. And now we'll go ahead to the top right here and select Explore. This is step 3.1.3. Once you click Explore, this is going to take our Snowflake table that we had just used and place it in an exploration. So this exploration is a ad hoc analysis type of workbook here. This is where you can answer any quick questions or make some quick charts to get some insights on your data. Once you're in an exploration, this will not be saved as it's quickly used for ad hoc analysis, but if you ever did want to save this as a workbook to share out with users, you can always select Save As. So now we're on step 3.1.5, and this is showing off our collaborative canvas. So this canvas is where you would be able to, like I said earlier, do any ad hoc analysis, find insights, and create visualizations. This is where you would also be able to create your dashboards as well. So you could add multiple different types of elements to your workbook to be able to create a dashboard and share it out with other users. And then as you see here, this is the table that we had pulled. We see the same 4.5 million rows. This is that spreadsheet interface that we talked so much about. Our founders saw that there's many spreadsheet users throughout the world. So they wanted to make a platform that is a very familiar interface to what you're used to in Excel or Google Sheets, so that the transfer over to a data analytics tool is very seamless. So no SQL knowledge needed to be able to perform your analysis here. Everything is going to be very similar to what you're used to in a spreadsheet. So we are now in step 3.1.6. If we select on this cost column, we're able to see the actual table that is coming from and the name of the column that we are pulling. So this is our cost column, so it is named cost. Below the toolbar, you're able to see the rows and columns that you're using, and this is also where your summary bar is, which we'll talk about a little bit later. This is where you can create total columns and values for your analysis. But let's start doing some work here. So we're now on step 3.1.8, and let's start by adding a new column. To add a new column, you could right-click on your cost column, or you can just click on the little drop down there and select Add New Column. And this will add a new column for us. If we wanted to make this a calculated column, we would then add our formula to the formula bar at the top of our screen, which is very familiar to Excel or Google Sheets. So say we wanted to find a cost of goods sold column, all we would do is type in our cost here, multiply that by our quantity, and this will give us our cost of goods sold. To rename this column, you can either click on the drop down or you can double click to rename it. So we'll call this our COGS column. You'd also be able to format this column either by selecting on the drop down and selecting format, or you can just come up to the top here and format it as a currency. Okay, we are now on step 3. I'll talk about 3.1.10 in a little bit. We're going to skip down to 3.1.11. We're going to create a new column here again. So we'll right click or select on the drop down, select add new column, and now we'll calculate our revenue, which will be our price. You can also select on columns and have them enter in the formula bar. So we'll do price multiplied by our quantity, and this will give us our revenue. And we'll format that as a currency as well. Now that we have both of these calculated columns, we would be able to use these columns in other calculations as well. So let's say we wanted to calculate our profit. We can add a new column here, and this time we'll just do revenue minus our cost of goods sold. So pay attention to the little blue bar running across the top once I click enter here. Oh, the blue bar didn't come. That's just because we are using our alpha query. So if you're now in step 3.1.13, we're going to calculate one more column after this one. We'll rename this to profit. And then we'll use one more calculated column for profit margin. We'll quickly add a new column, and we'll just do profit divided by revenue. And this will give us our profit margin. And we can use a percentage for this calculation. So the reason why you didn't see the blue bar running across the top is because we're using our browser query. So for simple calculations such as addition, multiplication, or division, we are going to actually calculate these values from within the browser. So this is very helpful for saving money and time on compute of the actual of your Snowflake or other cloud data warehouse instance. So instead of directly querying the cloud data warehouse, we are just running this computation in the browser, and it's going to run very fast based off that. For more complex queries, we will actually hit the browser to give us the results that they are getting from there, which you'll see in a little bit. So we're now in step 3.1.14. If you wanted to take a look at the different functions that are available within Sigma, we can click on this little question mark on the bottom right-hand side, select function index, and now open up a new tab for us. So quickly, you're able to see all of the different functions that you're able to use within Sigma. These are all going to be very similar to Excel or Google Sheets. But since we are leveraging the power of SQL, we're able to use things such as window functions, as well as pass-through functions. Pass-through functions will allow us to call out UDFs or functions from within your cloud data warehouse. Okay, we're gonna hop on to 3.2 now, which is creating visual elements. So on step 3.2.2, we'll focus on this table here as our parent table, and let's go ahead and start by creating a visualization off of this table. To create a child element, we'll select on this Create Child Element button, and then you have a couple options here. We'll start by building a visualization. So you can select Visualization here, and that will quickly create a new tile for one of our visualizations. To add data to these visualizations, we will use the left-hand panel here to add columns. So if we wanted to add store region, for instance, to our x-axis, we would click Add Column, and then we could type in our store region, and that will search it for us. So we added our store region to our x-axis. That was step 3.2.4. Now let's go ahead and add a column to our y-axis. And you can also drag columns up to be able to add these columns. So if we want to look at our profit by store region, we could select on our profit column here and drag it up to our y-axis. And this will quickly aggregate our profit to a sum by our store region. So now we're looking at the profit for each of these store regions. That was step 3.2.5. If you'll notice, it did aggregate it by default. You can always unaggregate it by checking this box, but usually what you'll do is you'll have these values be aggregated once you make a chart. So we'll keep that checked. Okay, now on to step 3.2.6. We're going to add another visual element here. So another way to add a visual element is by going up to this top left, Add Element, selecting that, and now we'll add another visualization here. So we'll select on Visualization, and this is where we'll select what we want the source to be for this visualization. So as we see in use, we can grab the table that we're using right here. We can also grab the original base table. That would not have the calculated columns that we had made, so we'll want to choose this plugs electronics table that we're using. But you'd also always be able to pull in new tables or data sets that are not in this workbook already, including writing your own SQL, uploading CSV, or making a join within this workbook. But we'll select this table that we have been using already. So now into step 3.2.7, let's go ahead and start by checking out the different visualizations we offer. A couple different visualizations out of the box here that we'll show off, but we'll go ahead and use a line chart to start. So now for this line chart, we'll want to see how this data is performing over time. So we'll start by dragging our date column up to our x-axis. By default, it will truncate our date to the exact day that it's on, but we would also always be able to change this aggregation. So on step 3.2.9, we can select on the dropdown for this column and hover over truncate date to see the other options that we have here. And let's go ahead and switch this to month. So now we'll be truncating by month on this date. So 3.2.10, we're going to go ahead and drag revenue up to our y-axis, and that will show us how our revenue is doing on a month-by-month basis. We can also break out this line chart into different colors as well. So we focused last time on store region. Let's go ahead and drag store region up to our color, and this will break out our line chart into different store regions. So we'll drag store region up to this color section, and that broke our revenue out into specific store regions. Let's create one more chart here. So to create our last chart, we'll go back to Add Element, and this time we will make a pivot table. So you get all the same options we had for the line chart here. We'll go ahead and select this plugs electronics table that we had made already. And that will create a new pivot table for us. For this pivot table, we'll start by dragging a couple columns up to our pivot rows section. And you could drag as many columns as you want up there, but we'll start by dragging our store region to our pivot rows. And then let's add product type as well. So we'll drag product type up to the same pivot rows section, and it'll break out our store regions into each of the product types that they offer. That was step 3.2.13 if you're following along. Now for pivot column for 3.2.14, we're going to drag our date up to our pivot columns. So we'll drag date up here. By default, it truncates it to day. We're going to go ahead and change that truncation to year. And that gives us our dates truncated year broken out in our pivot table. So from here, you're always able to sort, change the sort order for this. Right now, we're looking at 2018, but we probably want to see our last year first, our most recent year. So to change the sort order, we can select on this drop down for year of date and select on our year of date. Right now, it is ascending, but we'll change that to descending, and that will put 2022 as our latest year. So now we're going to add some values to this pivot table. This is step 3.2.16. We'll start by bringing up our profit to our values. So drag our profit to our values section, and that'll quickly give us some values in our pivot table. And we can also drag our sum of profit margin as well. So if we drag our profit margin, it will sum that for us. But since this is a percentage, we probably don't want to sum up these percentages, so we can always change the level of or the aggregation that we're using. So if we right click on our sum of profit margin here and hover over set aggregate, we can go ahead and change that to average. Now this will this will be the average of each of our profit margins. We're now in step 3.2.18. We are showing our totals for each of these store regions right now. If you ever wanted to turn off your totals, you can click on the level of grouping that you would want to turn it off on, and you could select show totals and it will make those totals disappear. But by default, we'll go ahead and keep our totals there. So that was step 3.2.18 and 3.2.19. So now we're in step 3.2.20. If we ever wanted to collapse this just to see our highest level of aggregation, we can always collapse our whole pivot table by selecting on this little minus sign, and that will just show us the values for each of our store regions with the totals at the bottom. Okay, these look like some great aggregations. Let's go, or sorry, some great visualizations. Let's go ahead and save this this exploration that we've been working on. To save this, you can select on Save As in the top right, and then we'll go ahead and save this in our My Documents and call this Plugs Sales Exploration. We select Save, and now this is a workbook that is a shareable document that we could share out with whoever we would like. To share this out, we would select on this little icon here to share. From here, you would be able to share it with different teams or different members in your organization, and you would also be able to check who has access to this document once it has been shared. But we won't share right now, so we'll just click cancel. We are now in step 3.2.23. Another couple ways to share this out. You would always be able to share this out via scheduled exports as well. So if we select on scheduled exports here, you can add a schedule for when you would want to send out this document. So you could send it out via email or Slack. You can select with that whichever pages you want or just specific visualizations and how you'd want to send it out as a PDF or image. You would set your schedule in this little section here. And then you'd also be able to add some conditional sending as well. So this is very helpful for if you're trying to meet thresholds, or if you're setting goals or setting an alerting system, you would always be able to set a condition for this to be sent out. But we'll go ahead and cancel out of there. So that was module 3. We are now heading into module 4, creating a dashboard. I'll pause there for people to catch up, or if there's any questions that I could help answer.
So one fun question was, what if the table's too big and sigma times out? So what's your experience been with those kind of situations, Ryan?
Good question. So since we are leveraging the power of the cloud data warehouse, that timeout is actually because the table is taking too long to run in your cloud data warehouse. So Sigma has a default timeout time of 2 minutes. If you would like to increase that, you can do that from your administration portal. But if you would like the query to generally run faster, that has to do with your cloud data warehouse. So if you're using a tool such as Snowflake, it might be helpful to bump up your compute warehouse to a higher t-shirt size so that this would be able to run faster.
And curious, what's the biggest table that you've worked on in a trial or a proof, Ryan?
Good question. I'm still pretty new in the solutions engineering org, but recently I just worked with a 40 billion row table, and that was running on a small t-shirt size in Snowflake. So we could work with a ton of data as long as you have sized your warehouse correctly.
Yeah, I think the biggest I've worked with so far was 700 billion. That was more on the fringe use case side, but between clustering and materialization, we still got to be performant. I think that's it for questions, and that gave folks maybe a few minutes to catch up.
Perfect. Okay, we'll hop into module 4 then, creating a dashboard. So 4.1.1, we have all these visualizations now. Maybe we want to share this out with users as an interactive dashboard. So let's start making that. We can start that by moving our visualizations to new pages. So this is step 4.1.1. To move our bar chart to a new page, we can select on this little menu right here and head on down to Move To, and we can move this visualization to a new page. So what that did is it just moved our bar chart to a new page here. Once that page is created, we'll probably want to rename those. So we'll want this to remain as our data sources page. To rename that, we can go ahead and rename that by double clicking here and selecting on our double clicking and then naming this data. And then we'll name our second page sales performance. Sorry, let me go ahead 1 second. Okay, so now we're on step 4.1.3. We'll go ahead and move our other visualizations to our sales performance page. We can do that by selecting on this menu again and moving our visualizations to our sales performance page. So we'll move our line chart as well as our pivot table. So now all we have is our parent table on our data page, and then we have all of our visualizations over here on this sales performance page. So to move these visualizations around now, we'll probably want to condense these to make sure it's visible in one screen. To move this around, you can click and drag, or hold down and drag this line chart right to the right of our bar chart here. So you see that little blue line on the right hand side of the screen. If I release, then it will move our line chart right next to our bar chart here. And that was step 4.1.4. So now we're on step 4.1.5. We'll probably want to add some descriptions to this dashboard. We can do that by going to the top left, selecting Add Element, and then we can select on a text box here. And that added a text box right below our line chart here. We can go ahead and drag that up to the top of our dashboard. And then from here, we can start adding some description. So this is our sales performance dashboard. This is step 4.1.6 if you're following along. Let's go ahead and type in sales performance. Right now we're on medium paragraph. Let's go ahead and make that a medium heading. So now everyone knows it's our sales performance dashboard. Let's go ahead and add a little more description to this for 4.1.7. So we'll start by adding another text box. And now we can explain what this dashboard is. So we'll say this dashboard is used to explore our regional sales performance. Okay, that was step 4.1.7. Next, we'll probably want to add some filters to this dashboard. So let's go ahead and start by adding a date range filter. To add a filter, we'll go back to Add Element, and we'll select on this date box here. Once we select on that date box, it'll make a new control for us, which is our date range control. And then let's go ahead and move this to the right of our title there. So now we have a new control, a date range control that is set up for our users. And then we can also change our control ID and control label based off that. We'll name our control ID date range, and we'll name our control label, which is what is shown on the dashboard, to select a date range. That was step 4.1.9. So now we have our date range here. If we wanted to add our visualizations so that they are affected by this date range, we can head into our target section here. And from here, we can go ahead and select Add Target. So this is step 4.1.11. Once you select Add Target, you're able to see the different pages that you're working on. So we'll want to work on our sales performance page. And then from here, we're able to add the targets that we want to be affected by this, this date range filter. So we'll first start by adding our bar chart. And then from there, it will show you that the bar chart is being targeted and what column is actually being filtered. You'd always be able to change this, but since we're using a date and we only have one date column, we could select on our date here. So now let's go ahead and add our other targets as well. So we'll want to add it for our line chart as well as our pivot table. And it will show you that it will select the month of date on your line chart because that's what we're truncating to, and then year of date on our pivot table. So now on to step 4.1.13. Let's start by applying this filter. So maybe we want to look at how our data is going over the last 30 days. To do that, we can select on our date range here, select on quick select. We'll use our last 30 days. And then it will load all of our data based off that. But it looks like we don't have any data for our pivot table, so maybe we just want to look at our last 1 year here. So now we're looking at all of these visualizations over our last year. Okay, now on to step 4.1.14. This looks like a good dashboard. but we probably don't want our users to be able to access this parent table and change around any calculations that could affect those visualizations. So if we wanted to hide this from our users, all you'd do is select on this dropdown and click on hide. And now anyone that doesn't have edit access to this dashboard would not be able to see this data page. They would only be able to see the sales performance page. Now on to step 4.1.15. This looks like a good dashboard. Let's go ahead and publish, and that will make changes to wherever this dashboard is located. So if it was located in a workspace, once you publish, anyone would see these changes after it's published if you're the creator and editor of this dashboard. So now on to section 4.2, exploring the dashboard. So to explore this dashboard, we'll start by selecting on this editing, and we'll preview this dashboard as an explorer. This is step 4.2.1. So now we are in the Explorer version of this dashboard. As you see right away, that since we had hid that data page, it is no longer accessible to us because we're exploring this dashboard. And now we'll be able to dig deep into this dashboard to get some analysis that we want to see. So in this exploration, I'm going to take the role of a merchandising manager. I'm going to run through a quick example of what you may want to do while exploring this dashboard. I've been asked by our CEO to create a campaign to revive our loyalty program for our top customers. All I've been told is the pilot in our southern region and target customers purchasing computers. There are the first couple of points that give me direction, but from there, I'm not sure yet. I'm looking to get transaction level data that my team can build an effective campaign around. So running through a quick example here. To do this, we'll start by, this is step 4.2.5. We'll start by showing our underlying data. So we said we wanted to focus on our southern region here. We'll go ahead and right click on our southern region and show our underlying data. From here, it's going to load for us, and we'll drill down onto our product family because we said we wanted to focus on computers and tablets. So basically what that did is it applied a filter on our southern region and then changed our x-axis to match our product family. So now that we're able to see this, we're able to focus on our computers and tablets. So I went pretty fast there. That was up to step 4.2.8. So we're on step 4.2.8 here. We'll go ahead and collapse this so we're able to see the data for each of these bars right here. We said we wanted to focus on our computers and tablets. So we'll go ahead and we'll right click on our computers and tablets here, and we'll drill down into our store name. So let's search for our store name, select on that, and now we're able to see all of our different stores. So once again, that applied a filter on our computers and tablets, the southern filter still applies, and then changed our x-axis to match our store names. So if you're following along, that was step 4.2.10. Now from here, you have the complete power to change calculations and use columns that are in the base columns to find the insights that you want to see. So we said we wanted to focus on our customers. To change our calculation, all we would do is select on our y-axis column, and then we can go up to the formula bar to change our calculation on the fly. You no longer have to go back to the data team to change any metrics that you want to see. We can just change this value for ourselves. So we wanted to focus on customers. Let's see our profit. Let's see our profit by customer. To do that, we would just divide by count distinct of our customer name. Press enter, and that will rerun the query as a new y-axis. So we can rename this calculation now to average customer profit. So we're close to where we wanted to go. We wanted to see our top customers, so let's drill down one more time. We'll drill down into this Clark store number 942. We see this is one of our top performing stores. To drill down one more time, we'll right click here, drill down into customer name. So now we see our top customers in one of our top stores in our southern region, specifically on computers and tablets. So that was step 4.2.12. So now into step 4.2.13, if we wanted to sort this by our customer profit, we can do that by right-clicking on one of our bars here, selecting sort, and then selecting on our average customer profit. And that will sort us by our top customers here. So now on to step 4.2.14. It's going to be a little bit different than what you see on your PDF, but it's the same direction here. We see there's a steep drop off at around $5,000. So maybe we want to filter this just to show our top customers here. To do that, we can select on our y-axis column, hit the drop down and select filter. That will open up our filter in the top right. And from here, we can put a minimum of $5,000 for our average customer profit. And that would filter it on so we would only see our top customers. That was step 4.2.15 if you're following along. Now from here, we have the answer we want to see, and we can see our lowest level of detail, lowest level of data, which is a row. So maybe we wanted to see how our top customer was spending their money and what they're spending their money on. We can select on this little uncollapse here for Doug Bullock, and we would be able to see the row level data for our top customer. And based off these insights, we can take actions based off what we're seeing, what products they're buying, and how much of those. So that was most of the work we wanted to do with drill downs here. We can go ahead and minimize this element, and as you'll see, all the changes that we have made will still be applied to this bar chart below. From here, if you are an end user, say you are consuming this dashboard, you would always be able to save this own work for yourself. You could save this as a dashboard for yourself so you're not editing the original dashboard that everyone is using so that you can continue your analysis on your own. But if you were the creator, editor of this dashboard, you can always publish this to make sure the changes propagate to anyone who's using this dashboard. So that was step 4.2.18. And that is the end of module 4. So I'll quickly take a break there in case anyone still needs to catch up if there's any questions. I went through that last section pretty fast, so feel free to ask any questions now if you have any.
Yeah, Ryan, can you show dynamic text real quick? Just within like the dashboard is used, to show where that sits.
Yeah, sure. Let me hop back into edit mode here. To use dynamic text, you can do that all from within a text box here. So if I wanted to add a formula, you'd basically just add an equal sign, and then you would be able to call out specific values from these visualizations.
Yeah, one of the questions was, can you get it to display different text? So in that case, what the function would be if certain value is greater than X percentage, comma, return in parentheses result, or whatever you want to display based off the word. So this is very flexible for calling out individual calcs and even doing that from a text perspective.
Yeah, it's very helpful, and these will always change dynamically as the name says. So really quick, I just summed up all my revenue in the in our table down below, and so this is always going to change when your data changes within the cloud data warehouse. So all the same formulas that you would be able to use within within the spreadsheet interface, you would be able to use within our dynamic text.
Okay, and another question, is there a way to have filters displayed on top under the formula bar? So I think best way, can you show creating a filter and then promoting it?
Yeah, definitely. So we applied a couple filters to this visualization here. If I wanted to promote it to a page control, which is what you're seeing for the select date range, say I wanted to add a filter for our store name, we can select on this little three dots here and convert it to a page control. And then it's displayed right above this visualization. So if I wanted to change my store here, I'll be able to change that to view a different one, and it would just impact this visualization.
Great. And the last thing was, can multiple tables be referenced for a data set, or does a view need to be created within the data warehouse first? I can take this one. You can go ahead and join multiple tables for a data set, or if it's already predefined within Snowflake, you can just point to that view. We're very flexible. There's also other cases where folks spend some time within a tool like dbt. They do all their modeling within Snowflake, and then we just point to those tables. Or some folks like to join tables within Sigma, create data sets, and we can actually write those back as warehouse views that can be picked up by other more traditional BI tools.
Definitely.
All right,
Any
that's
other
about it.
questions? That's it? Okay, perfect. So we will hop into module 5 now, Sigma tables. So these topics are a little more advanced than what we've been working through so far, so I'll make sure to go a little bit slower here. But if you have not already, step 5.1.1 will hop back into edit mode. You can do that by just selecting edit here, and then we'll get started. So on step 5.1.2, we'll go ahead and start by adding a new page. So you can do that by going to the bottom left-hand side of your screen and selecting add page. And we'll start by bringing in a table. So you could select on table here. We'll go ahead and we'll use that same table that we've been using from before. So this plugs electronics table. And I'll bring in that same table that we've been working on onto this new page here. So basically anything that we've been doing in these visualizations, you can also do them from within a table, such as truncating our dates to different levels of aggregation. So on step 5.1.3, we'll start by truncating our date into a month. So same way we did it last time, just right click on date column and truncate it to a month, and that will truncate all of our dates to whatever month they are in. And if you see here, that was a shortcut, but if you wanted to work out of the formula bar, you'd always be able to add this date truncate formula here. Next, we're going to group by our month column here. So to group by, we'll select on the drop down and we'll select group column. This is step 4.1.4, or sorry, 5.1.4. Select on group column, and that will move our month of date over to the left-hand side. And we can go ahead and collapse that so we could see all of our months side by side with each other. To add a new column at this level of aggregation, you want to make sure you select on your month of date here, and you'll select add new column. So this will allow us to make calculations at this level of aggregation that we had already used. You'd also be able to add a calculation on this left-hand side to this level of grouping. So maybe we want to see what our profit is on a month-by-month basis. This is step 5.1.6. To do that, we'll want to make sure we're on our new calculated column here, and we'll just call out sum of our profit column. Whoops. And this will give us our monthly profit. And you could rename that right here by double clicking and typing in monthly profit. So now in step 5.1.7, this is actually where they collapsed it. So already collapsed. So we're going to skip to 5.1.8. Now we are able to add multiple levels of aggregation to this data. So say we wanted to group by our month of date and our store region. To do that, we would move down to our right-hand side where our store region is, select on the drop-down, and select group column. As you'll see on the left-hand side, we are now grouping by our month of date and our store region, and you can see that in the left-hand panel as well, that we have two separate levels of aggregation here. And then from here, we would be able to add calculations to our store region level of aggregation. So if we wanted to add a new calculation, we would just press on this little plus sign. You can also add a new column by selecting on the store region column. We'll select new column, and then we'll use the same formula we used for the last one. We'll do sum of our profit. And now you can't see this right now because we're collapsed, so let's quickly maximize this month of date column. And now that was step 5.1.11, by the way. Now we're able to see the sum of our profits for our store region. Sorry, I forgot to name this regional profit, so we'll rename this regional profit. So now we're able to see the breakdown of each of our months and how each of our regions are doing within that given month. So now in step 5.1.12, now we're going to use a cross-level calculation here, which can definitely be tricky to do if you're just using SQL. With Sigma, it's very easy. You'll just use the same Excel syntax that you're used to. Let's start by adding a new column at the store region level. This is step 5.1.13, and then we'll add our formula to our formula bar. Let's say we wanted to see the contribution level of each of these regions to the monthly profit. To do that, we'll just divide our regional profit divided by our monthly profit, and this will give us our contribution level. And we'll go ahead and format that as a percent and rename this column contribution. So now we see what each of these regional profits are and how much they're contributing to the month of date. Okay, that was 5.1. One quick note, you would always be able to move around these grouping levels if you'd want. Say you wanted to group originally by store region and then have it by month of date, you can always switch those around by dragging that at the top. We'll leave it as is right now. So we'll hop now into 5.2, intro to totals. Okay, so to get totals within a workbook or a specific table, all you'll need to do is select on your grouping level here and then select show totals. So right now we're looking at store region. This is at 5.2.2. To show our totals, we can hit on the drop down and then select show totals, and that will give us the totals for each of these levels of groupings. So as you see here, this will be the total for the month for each of the regions. It should match up directly with this as it does. And then the total at the top would be the total for all of these values. So we're now going to go to step 5.2.4. We'll add in some conditional formatting here. To add in conditional formatting, you'll go ahead and you'll select on the column that you would want to add it on. For this, we'll use regional profit. We'll select on the drop down, select conditional formatting. Quickly, they'll add formatting here, but this isn't too helpful. So let's go ahead and change this to a color scale. And then that will break out our values into a specific color scale for whoever needs to see this. Another way to find totals is through our summary bar. So this is step 5.2.5. So if you would like to use the summary bar, you'd start by selecting on this little caret that says show summary. From here, you're then able to add totals to your summary bar. So say we wanted to find a sum of revenue. To do that, we would select add summary here, and then we could search our revenue column. And once we select that, it's going to do a sum of revenue across all of these values. Okay, so after that, let's add one more summary here. Let's say we want a sum of cost of goods sold. To do that, we'll add another summary bar here, and this time we'll pull in cost of goods sold. And this will add a total for sum of cost of goods sold. And as you see here, it is just adding a formula of sum of cost of goods sold, same with sum of revenue here. So now on to step 5.2.7, we would also be able to use these values. We would be able to use these calculated columns that we had just made in a new summary bar. So if we want to add a new summary here, we could select on the plus sign, select on new summary, and then we would be able to use the formula bar to be able to use any calculations that we had made. So maybe we want a total of profit. To do that, all we would need to do is call out our sum of revenue and subtract that by our sum of cost of goods sold. And now this will be our total profit. So we'll rename this to profit. I'll pause there for any questions before we head into the last section here, if there are any.
No questions. I guess I'll just offer one up. Can we point at those summations with like a KPI tile or like a summary tile?
Definitely, yeah. So KPI tiles are heavily used. If you ever wanted to just place this big total profit number into a big single value visualization, you can create a child element off this visualization and then be able to call out this value that we had just used. So we'll switch this to a single value visualization, and then we could drag up our total profit to this value. Obviously, we don't want to aggregate it again, so we'll just select on the aggregate checkbox, and then we'll be able to see our total profit in the bottom in here.
Thanks, Ryan. I just want to show that off because I think we do that at way easier than most tools.
Definitely. Okay, perfect. We'll head into the last section here, intro to parameters. All right, so this is section 5.3. So parameters are very helpful within Sigma. They allow you to add a customizable field that you would be able to call out within your workbook, within separate tables, so that you can use these variables in different table calculations. We often see this with what if analysis, checking if your product sales growth were 2% versus 5%. So in this section, we'll walk you through how to create a parameter. So we're on step 5.3.2 now. We'll go ahead and add a new element in our top left, and then we'll select on our text box here. Quickly, that will make a text box for us. For this, you'll want to make sure that you have the control type selected as a parameter instead of a filter. You'll want to make sure it's a parameter. We'll switch our value type to a number, and then we'll call this control ID our forecast. So we'll rename this forecast. And that will change our control label to that as well. That was step 5.3.4. We can now use this parameter in our formulas. So first in our forecast parameter, let's put a value of 1.1 so we can see what happens if there is an increase in revenue by 10%. So let's input 1.1 here, press enter. Right now it's not going to do anything because it's not connected to any of our calculations here. But once we add a new a new formula or add it to an existing formula, then this value that we have inputted here will impact the different values in our table. So we'll do that right now. So now we're on step 5.3.6. We'll go ahead and we'll add this forecast value to our sum of revenue here. So if we go ahead and select our sum of revenue, we'll head to the top of our formula bar here, and we'll add in a multiplying by our forecast parameter. And you should see the little parameter icon here once you're using this. So now that we have this in, before we press enter, once we press enter, you're going to see that's going to impact our sum of revenue column, and it will also impact our total profit column because that is impacted by our sum of revenue. So now we'll press enter. As you see, the query will run again, and now we'll see how our revenue would be impacted if we had a 10% bump in revenue. So that's how parameters are able to work within Sigma. A quick introduction to them. To save this workbook, we'll go ahead and we'll press publish, and that will be the final step in the PDF. So now if there are any questions, I can answer those real quick. If not, we could hop back into the slides, Zach.
Yeah, I can give it a second, see if anybody adds any new questions. And in the meantime, I'm going to set up another poll. And this will be that after this lab, what will be the best next steps for you? So if you would like to continue to explore until the trial ends, if you'd like to get ahead and extend your free trial, or if you'd like a custom demo. Now, those custom demos are great for finding an actual use case and framing up your trial for the most success possible on top of your data within your cloud data warehouse. Now, let's see, I got an actual question. One question from the chat: can Sigma be used as a means of entry into Snowflake? So like almost as a proxy for systems that they don't have yet. Now, Sigma is, in my opinion, maybe the easiest way to get started with Snowflake. So as you're beginning your Snowflake journey or your cloud data warehouse journey, we're great for getting data into it from business users and really giving them a seat at the table to help build data products faster. So you have your data team, your BI team, and your business user all working off a common user interface that they can all interact with. The data team, BI folks, they can write SQL if they want to. They can hand off that result to business users. Those business users can use spreadsheet-like interactions, upload CSVs, get more data in, rather than having like these endless requirements gathering sessions where the product's never quite right and they keep exporting it to Excel because they just want to get it done. So what we found is that Sigma as a means of entry or lowering the barrier of entry into Snowflake is usually a very successful workflow. I'm going to close that poll. Okay, I can see your screen, Ryan.
Oh, can you still see it?
I can see you bringing in, yep, time for a poll.
Okay, perfect.
Looks like that is it for Q&A. Now, as you are in your Sigma trial, there's a little question mark in the bottom right-hand corner. That's our live chat. And that's not just available for during our trials, that's available in every deployment of Sigma. You can chat live with one of our support engineers, and they've seen just about everything underneath the sun in terms of, hey, I used to do this way within Looker, or I used to do this way within Excel. How do I do it now within Sigma? They can respond very promptly. We have always got great feedback for our award-winning support engineer team. Now, upcoming next, you have 14 days to keep working through the lab. Any kind of technical questions, feel free to use that live chat. Reach out to your Sigma support engineer, And in the future, what we have coming up is, first of all, next week, some of us will be at the Databricks Summit. If you want to come by our booth and say hello, we can talk about our support for Databricks, or if you just happen to be there as a partner or out of interest in San Francisco, that's somewhere we can meet some of us actually in person. Our next virtual hands-on lab is going to be July 28th. So if you got distracted or somebody had a fire drill during this session, you can join again and be able to work through that lab. And coming up even sooner is our What's New in Sigma webinar. So that's led by one of our chief evangelists, John Avrak, and he goes through the new features in Sigma, kind of talks through best practices, some of the art of the possible, and where the tool is heading in the future for more and more exciting use cases. I think, are we out of slides, Ryan? I think that's a wrap. So thank you everybody for joining. Feel free to reach out for any follow-up questions, schedule a custom demo, talk more about use cases. Really excited to share this tool with everybody on the line today, and have a great rest of your week. Bye now.
Thanks, everyone.